Well, hello, friends, and welcome back to the Enough Mom podcast. I'm Jennifer Bryant. I'll be your host today, and you are listening to episode 118, What Nobody Tells You About Investing in Yourself. Happy belated Valentine's Day. I hope you felt love this week. I know I did. I know that most of the day my family was out working and I was at home either making food or putting little Valentine cards together for them. We had a pretty busy week with work and school and all of those different things. We didn't do anything particularly special. We usually don't pay a whole lot of attention to this holiday. I certainly don't make it a big thing, but it is a fun time just to give little gifts here and there once in a while. Well, I hope someone brought you something special, whether it's hearts or candy or flowers, maybe a handmade card with crooked letters and a whole lot of glitter or something. Whether it was something you actually wanted or whether it's something that you just nod your head and smile about because a little person made it with you in mind, I hope that you still felt seen and celebrated. What I really want to ask you, though, is did you remember to make room for yourself this Valentine's Day? Did you remember to love yourself? Not in a cheesy bumper sticker, self-help kind of way, but really, genuinely, practically. Did you do something that you wanted to do for yourself this week? Did you extend even a fraction of the love, consideration, and compassion that you regularly give to other people? Because moms are extraordinarily good at loving others. We're good about thinking about the needs of others. We buy Valentines, we plan special dinners, we make little heart-shaped pancakes. We're the ones slipping the notes in the lunchboxes. We pour out our love constantly on our kids, our spouses, and sometimes even our pets. Sometimes that's like every day. Hello, Doge. My pet is right here, podcasting right along with me. But then we turn that gaze toward ourselves, and all of a sudden we become our own worst critic. All of a sudden we haven't done enough. After all of that planning and pursuing and thinking ahead, we still tend to come back to the false narrative that we haven't done enough. And that's why I created this podcast, because we need to constantly remind ourselves that we are most likely doing or have done enough. And it's time to look inward and go, what do I really want? What would I really appreciate right now for myself, and how can I make that happen? Or how can I ask for it without feeling guilty or selfish? If there is a gap between how you treat others and how you treat yourself, let's work on closing that gap so that we are showing ourselves self-compassion just as much as we are showing others, or working on showing others, compassion. If you've been with me the last several episodes, you have been on a journey, and I don't think it's an accident that you're still here listening. In episode 113, we talked about when you wish you could start over. That raw, honest feeling of looking at your life and saying, how did I get here? Is it too late to change? And the answer we landed on together was no, it's not too late to change. It's never too late. But starting over does require that we look at ourselves differently, and that is with compassion. In episode 112, we talked about you're not behind, you're just beginning. That episode was about releasing yourself from the shame of feeling like you're behind and everyone else is passing you up. It's about recognizing that comparison is like this imaginary timeline that's keeping you from starting what you want to start. And then again, what makes that possible? It's compassion. It's actually the willingness to say, I'm not behind, I'm right on time. I'm okay, and I'm going to keep going. Going back further in episode 111, we got really practical with stop managing and start leading. And this episode was all about the family check-in thing. Remember, it was about reactive management of your family versus what it could feel like to move into intentional leadership in your home. And something we're going to revisit today from that episode is that you can't lead when you are empty. You can't lead from a place of depletion because leading requires resources. Leading requires us to have a full tank. And I'm talking emotional, mental, spiritual. You've got to get used to evaluating where you are so that you can lead them where they are. Back before that, in episode 110, we talked about breaking the cycle and why emotional intelligence was the most important leadership skill that you'll have. We talked about the patterns that we carry from our childhood that show up in our own parenting and how breaking those cycles really requires intention, awareness, and say it with me, compassion. Compassion for yourself as you do the hard work of becoming something different than what you were given. And then there was episode 109, where we talked about when your kids want things you can't afford, difficult conversations around kids and money, the difference between desire and disappointment, and how to lead with honesty and connection even in those hard moments. These conversations also require a dose of self-compassion, because money is weird to talk about sometimes. We don't always have a clear view of the difference between our value or what we value monetarily and what we value maybe morally or emotionally. And it can be difficult to have those conversations if no one had that conversation with you. So again, parents, give yourself compassion when it comes to addressing these topics, especially if you've never seen it done before. But that's where I'm here to help. And that's where I'll be bringing in others to talk about these conversations as well, hopefully provide some more clarity around how to think about difficult subjects that have you feeling like, gosh, am I not doing this right? We don't need to get down on ourselves. What we need to do is realize that compassionate parenting begins with compassionate self-leadership. I'm going to say that again. Compassionate parenting begins with compassionate self-leadership. You cannot give your kids emotional intelligence if you yourself are emotionally bankrupt. You cannot lead family check-ins from a place of overwhelm. You cannot break cycles when you are still drowning in them. And you cannot begin again if you never give yourself permission to. Everything we've talked about in the last 5 episodes has been building up to this one important truth. The most important investment you will ever make is in yourself. And today, on the heel of Valentine's Day, a day dedicated to love, I would love to talk about what it actually looks like to love yourself well. Not as a concept, not as a practice, but an intentional decision. I want you to see self-love as an investment. Now, last episode, I introduced this concept of compassionate parenting. It's very similar to gentle parenting, but I'm taking that idea and I want you to sort of shift your perspective onto the compassion piece specifically. Because when we don't have compassion for ourselves, for our mistakes, we certainly won't have them for our children and their mistakes. And in order to build resilient children, in order to build a relationship with your children that keeps coming back to you tenfold and that blesses both you and them, you have to be able to practice grace in your family life. And that has so much to do with self-acceptance and self-love and actively practicing regulating and acknowledging our feelings so that our reactions can come from a much healthier place. So when we talk about things like leading with connection before correction or breaking the cycles of how we were raised, these things are important. They're deeply important. It's the work that I am committed to and that I believe in. But the thing about compassionate parenting is you can't sustain it from an empty place. Think about the last time you were truly depleted, exhausted, overwhelmed. It may have even been today. How did you parent in that moment? Were you kind? Were you gracious? I hope you're able to push through and be, but the reality is that many of us cannot summon those good qualities when we are burnt out. I know when I'm completely tired, I definitely parent from a place of controlling management because I'm just trying to make the problem go away faster. And that's why the reaction of most parents to their children to just make the problem go away. This is why spanking, yelling, and all of those things that instill fear into our kids, they work faster because it shuts down the problem instead of actively addressing the problem. It takes more effort to actually be a good parent than a quick spanking or a harsh word will do. I mean, ask me how I know. I did it that way for years because I just needed to manage the chaos. But I'm telling you now, after looking back and after having raised who are now teenagers going into this world very soon as adults, I look back and I'm so sad. I'm so sad for my younger self. I'm not punishing myself, but I have to acknowledge the truth of how I used to approach my kids versus how I have to do it now if I want a sustained relationship with them. Every compassionate parenting practice requires us to be exceptionally compassionate with ourselves first. There's really no getting around that, friends, because you can't model self-regulation if you are not practicing self-regulation. You can't model healthy boundaries if you have none. If you give in every time, or if you're too harsh and don't allow your kids to have a voice in what's happening, or if you never wonder about what's going on underneath the behavior, because every type of behavior is communication. Behavior is a language, and we need to listen. The truth is, when you start investing in yourself, you start getting that emotional support that you need. You start waiting and recognizing what's actually happening in the moment instead of just reacting to it every time. You're going to find that your reactions calm down a lot. And all of a sudden, compassion is going to be something that just starts to naturally flow because you've already been living it. And that's really the foundation of what I'm trying to build here on the Enough Mom podcast. The courage and confidence in calling. It's not just cute alliteration. It's actual deeply felt motivations that I hope will lead us toward intentional leadership. Okay, so what does investing in yourself actually look like? Okay, let's go from simple examples to examples that may require not only your time, but also some money. Okay, I'm going to be real honest with you because this is where I started. When I was at my most overwhelmed, it was just as simple as reaching out to friends and saying, look, I'm not okay. I'm not okay, and I just need someone to come sit with me. Or can I call you? I just need to cry about something right now. Just being really honest. And if they can't help to meet your need more immediately, that's okay. But you have to be willing to ask and not do it because you're afraid of being rejected or being thought of as weak or something. Every one of us needs that shoulder to cry on sometimes. We need to release those emotions or they'll start to overtake our brains really, and we'll be living in a more of a constant state of panic and crisis than we would if we had a way to calm down. So don't be afraid to reach out to your friends in moments of need. Other ways you need to start investing in yourself is to literally carve out time for you. A quiet place in your house. And if you're going, Jen, that's kind of impossible right now because I'm raising young kids. Well, there are moments where you can make the house a little more quiet. If they're in nap times and you can talk to your young children about this is calm down time, this is quiet time, we're turning off devices, we're turning off TVs, we're dimming the lights. This is a time that we are creating for rest. And you have to try it. Just try to create that space. There will always be random noises around, but also you don't need to be doing everything all at once or being active all at once, okay? If you don't have any other adult to lean on during the day, like if your partner's at work or something, try to do what you can do with what you have, the time and the space that you have, and try not to pack your schedule. If you already are functioning in a very, very tightly packed schedule, you're going to need to look at your calendar and find some white space there. Where is some margin in my schedule that I can carve? Because remember, you are the leader of your life. You are leading a household of children, however many at this point in time, but you also need to take that responsibility for yourself onto yourself because nobody else is going to effectively do it for you, mama. Okay? Now, if you can ask a partner for help, you need to ask them. I need you to watch the kids while I go and rest for a bit, and give yourself and them a time limit. Carving out that time is so, so important. Whether it's just for you to lay down, to take some deep breaths, to read a little bit of a book, to disengage on purpose so that you can fill your tank again. Remember, only you can advocate for yourself. Some other ways you can invest in yourself is now we're talking about maybe a little bit of money toward something that you like. I had a professor in college tell me once that when he finished his classes for the week, he would reward himself with a milkshake. I'll never forget this. I don't know why, but it touched me because it was a model of an adult still rewarding themselves for a job well done. I said, why don't we just do that? Why don't I just think of things like that? I can finish my final exam and then, have a Haagen-Dazs or something, Think of a way that you can reward yourself, something that you have to wait to get, maybe by the end of the week, or maybe it's an end of the day thing and you go and, I don't know, go for a little walk by yourself or something. But think of ways that you can pour back in to you. This is what real self-care looks like. It's not always flowers and dates and bubble baths and whatever. Think of little things that you can do that make you happy. Sometimes I look at craft projects that I put aside because, I don't want to make that mess right now. But I really love putting together little miniature house things, like building a little tiny room with little tiny furniture. For some reason, that relaxes me if I can only really just focus on that. So my daughter got me a set for Christmas and I looked at it and loved it. And then I immediately thought, oh my gosh, when, and all the things I'm handling this year, when am I going to find time to do that? She gave it to me on Christmas and we said, we are doing nothing else Christmas Day, but, opening presents and relaxing a bit. And so I said, okay, I'm going to put this together today because today I have the margin to do it. And I spent about 2.5 hours just listening to music and putting my tiny little room together. And it brought me joy. And I could remember loving that time because my daughter knew me well enough to know Mom loves these tiny little weird things. So I'm going to bless her with that. And I gave myself the time back by putting it together. And I loved it so much that I bought another one and it's staring at me in the face. It's right here in my office. And I'm going, I have to unbox that. I have to make time on my calendar to take that out of the box and spend time putting it together because I really enjoy these things. I enjoy them. Nobody else in my family, they all could care less about these little things. And I don't need them to love it. I know that I do. So this idea of reinvesting in yourself has little to do with, waiting for someone else to make it happen for you and more about when are you going to make it happen for you? Do something that makes you happy. That's all I'm saying. And then the bigger ticket items that you could do for yourself is maybe treat yourself out at a restaurant or a food place that you really love. Get a new outfit. Of course, I'm talking be reasonable, stay within your budget, or maybe you save up for yourself to get a new outfit every few months or something like that. I personally love to order from Stitch Fix. Right now I have way too many clothes, okay? And Stitch Fix is not sponsoring this episode, but even though they aren't, I'm sharing this anyway. I love to order from Stitch Fix and get new outfits. I treat myself to that maybe, lately it's been like twice a year or something. But that's something special that I like to do for me. And then I started ordering outfits for my son because he doesn't know how to shop for himself yet, but I'd rather have someone else pick out his clothes, and now he has a new man wardrobe and whatever. So, but just things like that. And then beyond that, date nights or weekends away or something, but make time and put aside time and money for things that actually make you happy. When it comes to making time for yourself, Mama, these are the 3 objections I hear the most often, and you're probably already thinking them. So let me address them one by one. The first one is, I don't have money, Jen. I just don't have the money to do that. Okay, but let me ask you something. When your kid needed braces, did you find the money for that? When your car broke down, did you find the money? When your family needed something important, did you find the money? My point is, you find money for what you prioritize. And really, the honest question isn't whether or not you have the money, it's whether or not you think you're worth prioritizing. So one mom reached out to me fairly recently to say, I would love to coach with you, but I can't afford coaching. This was also a mom who was drowning in anxiety. She had lots of needs and lots of inner turmoil. And I said, okay, I would love to help you, but this is what my fees are. And you just kind of leave it at that. As much as I want to say, well, let me just help you for free, it can't always work like that. And that would not be honoring to myself and my commitment to my own business and things like that. See, at the time for this person, her cost felt too high because she was really undervaluing her own need to get better. She felt the problems looming, but she wasn't quite ready to invest in that direction yet. And that's understandable. And it's okay. We have to leave that up to every person, right? A few months later, she called me again, and she had decided to spend a couple $1,000s on family therapy because they didn't have the right insurance at the time or something. And because of that, she had lost a couple thousand in business income because because of all that was going on with her. Her business had stalled. She was dealing with so much anxiety, and it was deeply affecting her kids and her marriage. And she realized, Jen, I didn't think that I could afford to invest in us at that point, but really I couldn't afford not to. I'm so glad she found a therapist. I'm so glad she found someone who helped her to sort of dig out of that pit. But I loved also how she acknowledged that she couldn't afford not to take care of her mental and emotional health. When I take in my own coaching clients, after talking with them for a couple sessions, I can pretty quickly tell whether or not they're going to need deeper therapeutic help. And I am all for sending them to a great therapist who can uncover trauma and hurt and, deep wounds like that. But what I do in coaching is I'll help you to kind of untangle the thoughts around what you need so that you can determine whether or not you need deeper counseling or if you just need me to help you set up a better system for your life. And I know this from personal experience, friends. I have invested in both coaches and in ongoing therapy for deeper issues. And I'm telling you that personal investment is so important for getting past hurdles so that you can move on with your life in a way where anxiety is not crippling you from moving forward, but you have to believe that you're worth it. So I don't have the money. We find money for what we prioritize. Number 2, what people say often is, I don't have time. I don't have time. Well, how much time do you spend spiraling out because you're anxious about stuff? How much time is wasted because you haven't gotten a handle on a better system or a better way to think about things, or because you're so focused on, I'm going to figure this out myself, that so much time goes by and you just don't. Hey, I have a story about this. I was going to take a little break from podcasting back in 2021. And through COVID and during all that time, my own anxiety and a little bit of depression crept in on me too, honestly. And I was just like so focused on moving forward the way that I always had before that I said, okay, I'm coming back to it. I'm going to come back to it. But I never committed to myself. For 3 years, I did not recommit to myself because I didn't believe I was worthy of coming back to this medium. I had to do a lot of inner work to realize, Jen, girlfriend, you were called to this. You need to use your voice. You need to go back to speaking. But I couldn't because I was letting the perfectionism get in the way of doing it right. And look at how far all these other podcasters are now. I need to just do it the right way. What I really needed to do was move forward imperfectly and just start to take action. And that's what I finally committed myself to do this past October. And this is why you're watching me now, because I'm committing to consistent imperfection, really. But you have the time. So how much time is really wasted when you're sitting and worrying about all this and not taking action? How much time is wasted scrolling Instagram, continually comparing yourself to other people? How much time is wasted arguing with your kids because you haven't taken the time to learn better tools? How much time have you wasted feeling stuck because you have no one to process these things with? That's your time being consumed by the very problems that a small investment can solve. Last episode, remember we talked about burnout. Remember, burnt out mothers are less efficient, less present, less patient, less creative, and less joyful. So listen, spending 2 hours a month, let's say, joining a new community or coaching or anything that you do to invest in your personal development, including listening to podcasts like this, will come back to you multiplied, and you'll see the difference in your parenting, the way that you make decisions, the way that you're less reactive, and you'll slowly start to see yourself use your time better and better every day. And the last reason I hear fairly often is this one. It feels selfish. And this is the deepest one, honestly. And I'm going to address it in a way that I wish someone had addressed it with me a long time ago. You have to ask yourself honestly, who benefits from your self-neglect? Do your kids really benefit from a tired, depleted, anxious mother? Does your husband benefit from an exhausted, overwhelmed wife? In episode 111, we talked about this concept of going from managing to leading, right? Remember, leadership requires resources, and it's very difficult, if not impossible, to lead your family well in wisdom and patience and intention when you yourself are running on empty. When you are refusing to take the time and resources to refill yourself so that you can replenish with something better, then one could say that you are selfishly refusing to meet your own needs. Yikes. I know some moms who go all day without drinking water because they don't think of it. Is that you? Are you someone who forgets to eat, forgets to hydrate, and then wonders why she's sick and nauseous later? I mean, seriously, hydration is a big thing. I know that like kids complain about mom always asking, did you drink water? Did you drink water? Did you drink enough water? And we're over here like not hydrating and feeling sick. I mean, that's just one example of how we need to think about refilling ourselves with something physical like water. But refilling our needs, refueling our needs is just as important, you know? Getting poured into, getting encouraged. If you're a faith-based person, getting prayed for, you know? But you also have to do very practical things and think of yourself in very practical ways, even if it's just taking some time to put your feet up for a little while. Or, God forbid, taking a nap, you know, finding time to actually rest so that your body can recharge. But this idea of selfishness is actually demanding that others meet your needs when you're not willing to meet your needs yourself, you know? Like it doesn't make sense logically that we wouldn't think of ourselves like to care for what's actually going on in our bodies, but then we expect other people to think of that for us. But on the other hand, self-investment is the practice of meeting your own needs so that you can serve from your overflow. Remember in episode 110 when I talked about what are you modeling for your children? When you refuse to invest in yourself, you are modeling to your daughters that women don't matter as much. And you're showing your sons that women exist to sacrifice endlessly. But when you choose to care for and invest in yourself, you're showing your children that women have inherent value beyond their service. You get to show them that self-care isn't selfish and that growth is worth pursuing. You're showing them that you matter, and therefore they should believe that they matter too. And that is one example of compassionate parenting in action, because you're actually living out the principle that you're pouring onto your kids. You're pouring into yourself first so that that overflow can pour onto them. That's a whole lot of pouring. Let's move on from this metaphor. My point is that you can model compassion by first modeling it for yourself. So how does this relate to our 3 pillars of courage, confidence, and calling? I will tell you, everything that we've talked about in the last 5 episodes has required some level of courage. The courage to begin again, the courage to lead your family, the courage to break cycles, the courage to have hard conversations. And investing yourself is that same courage applied, just inwardly. It means saying, I believe that I am worth developing, even when everything in your subculture says that you should come last. The next thing is confidence. So calling back to episode 112, where we talked about you're not behind, you're just beginning, right? That one was about beginning where you are and realizing that confidence doesn't come before investment. Investment is the type of action that you need to take in order to help to build your confidence. When you choose to do things that make you happy, you are declaring that you are worth taking care of. And that tells your brain that you're worth it and that you build your confidence based on the action that it takes to do that. And taking that action is like making a declaration, basically, that you are telling yourself that you matter, and no amount of positive self-talk can do that for you. You actually have to make the move and do the thing that you want to do. And lastly, calling. We've talked a lot about the calling of motherhood, the call to lead your family well, the call to break cycles for the next generation. But calling requires capacity. You cannot pour out what you have not taken in. So investing yourself is not a detour from your calling. It's the path directly into it. When I was learning about writing and speaking, I had to invest in myself by going to writer speaker conferences. I did a couple of writer speaking retreats, and those experiences changed me from the inside out because I was investing in myself in such a way that I had to pause my family life, get on an airplane, go make accommodations for myself, go and meet strangers that I had never lived with before, live with them in a house for a week, and experience a transformation that I could not have done here in my own home. That was a very special type of investment. And the more that I did it, the more I saw other women who were also doing it for themselves and who were building up their own like fortitude in putting into practice what they really, really wanted to do. So if you want to be any type of creative, like a writer or speaker, you have to invest in those opportunities. I'm going to list quite a few in this episode, in the show notes here for you. I'll give you an idea of the places that I've gone that I would highly suggest for you as well. I don't want to spoil this too soon, but I am going to be hosting my own retreat here in Hawaii. It's going to be very soon. I'm still in the planning stages, but I want to offer an opportunity like that for you because of how much it changed my life going, to the mainland to do it there. So I'm going to create that opportunity here in Hawaii for you to take advantage of. There will be different offerings. There'll be offerings for, writers, creatives, maybe mothers. So stay tuned because that is coming. You do not want to miss that opportunity. So as I close out today's episode, I just want to remind you that the most radical act of self-love that you can take for yourself and your family is to invest in yourself. Whether that means just making those little choices, making room in your calendar, or it could be something like personal coaching. I happen to offer that for parenting, for just general life coaching things. Come spend some time, talk with me. I love to help people untangle their issues. I will create a plan for you for moving forward. You can decide how often you want to meet with me, so that's all up to you. I'll include all the notes for that here below. And so take advantage of that if that is something you are ready to do for yourself. But just know that everything we've been building together here, just listening to this podcast, including the courage to begin, the confidence to lead, and the calling to break cycles, all of it requires the foundation of a mother who takes herself seriously enough to invest in her own growth. You can do it, Mama. I know you can because you're worth it and your family needs it. And I know you have people in your life who are willing to be there for every step of it. So step into your community, let your needs be known, and let other people love on you so you can continue to love your people well. I'll see you next time.